Hi, listeners, and welcome to episode 7 of Wind Therapy, a podcast dedicated to women motorcycle riders, why we ride, what we ride, and our backstories. Information and education from a wide range of riders with varied experience and levels of riding ability, both on and off the road. This show's for all women riders around the world to inspire, motivate, encourage, and empower. Today, I'm going to introduce you to an exceptional woman. She's a national manager of a large employment services company. She's an avid horse and motorcycle rider. She primarily loves cruiser style motorbikes like her Harley Davidsons, and in her spare time, she's training her German Shepherd puppy to be a protection dog. Her father has always ridden bikes, and growing up, she rode dirt bikes. So when she met her husband, she decided to start riding road bikes. She's experienced and overcome a lot of adversity in her life and succeeds in everything she puts her mind to. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Nikki Jacobson. Hi, Nikki. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Nini. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no worries. I'm really looking forward to our chat. Um, so let's start. Let's talk about you and your life journey so far.
Sure. Well, I guess my journey into motorcycles evolved over the space of about 20 years, actually. I started out riding on the back of my dad's sports bikes when I was a young girl, and I loved him picking me up from school and taking me home on the bike, and it was always such a thrill. And so I had a love of bikes from a really early age, and I did a lot of dirt bike riding. We lived on property. But when I grew up, it really wasn't something that was on my radar until much later on in my life. When I was 16 to 18 years old, I was actually in a really violent relationship with the father of my son, who is now 19 years old. So I was a really young mum. And part of coming out of that relationship and out of that violence and rebuilding my life essentially at such a young age was this overwhelming need to just find the things that make me happy and really living and breathing the ethos of life is very, very short. I very nearly didn't make it here. So I want to make sure that I live everything that I want to do, and I go and enjoy everything that I want to enjoy. So for me, it really started off with my career. I was very focused on working. I never wanted to be, that young single mum on benefits and not really knowing what I was going to do with my life. It was very important to me that I overcame that, and I was able to bring my son and I out of that, essentially what is living on the poverty line. Unfortunately, no one can make ends meet on that on those benefits from Centrelink, as helpful as they are. So I really wanted to focus on that first of all, and I spent a lot of time in my 20s educating myself and making sure that I was pushing myself as hard as I could at work, and going from jobs like working at the Commonwealth Bank and working my way up through the ranks to becoming a broker, and then moving on to the energy sector and working for Energex and being a part of their change management team over to Ergon and AGL, and then continued my way into community services, and now have landed in a national manager role with a very large employment sector company. So a lot of my focus on my success and overcoming my earlier years was career focused. And then when I hit about 30, I realized that I was still missing some things. I was still letting fear hold me back a little bit. Fear of how could I make other goals that I wanted to make work, essentially. So I decided to buy a horse, just on the whim. I'm going to go buy a horse, and I'm going to find a paddock to stick him in. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had ridden horses as I was growing up, but it was my neighbor's horses. I never owned one, and that was a big wake up call. But I bought an ex racehorse, and I bought exactly the type of horse that you should not buy if you've never had a horse before. and what he yeah, and let me tell you,
Yep.
Nini, did he tell he taught me some lessons. I can tell you that much for free. And I spent a lot of time then working on the horses and building my own ability and really making sure that I honed my own skill. And that horse made me acutely aware of the fact that I was ultimately responsible for his failing and his success as well. So it was a really big wake up call that I'm now not just responsible for my success and my failings, but I'm responsible for his, and it's my job to make sure that he's the best that he can be, and I give him the best home that he should have. So I did that for a long time, but I still felt like, something's really not, I'm not really where I want to be yet. Like I really want to get back into riding motorcycles. And then I met my husband, who also was into motorcycles. And, those guys are so supportive of me. And as soon as I said to them, I kind of think I want to get off the back and get my own bike, they were all very supportive and helped me figure out exactly what I should be riding, and they all supported me in taking me for rides and getting me through my learners and through my licensing, and still to this day we ride a lot together, and the boys are always very, very happy to have me along, and that for me was, I finally got what I wanted out of life. I've got my beautiful family, I've got a great career, I've got my horses, and I've got my motorcycles, and I've really learned what the lesson is here in life. I've got the key. I'll tell you the secret.
Oh, thanks, Nikki, so much for sharing that. We all have a story, don't we? And I think if we take the time to listen to other people's stories, that what we go through and what we experience, we've got a choice on how we react to that.
Yes, definitely.
And it sounds like the choices that you made were just the next step to the next step to the next step to make you this wonderful person, the exceptional woman that you are today. And I think there'll be lots more to add to that story as the years go by.
I think there
Yeah,
will
so that's
be, and
amazing.
that's, thank you for saying that. I really think that the key to to really being as happy as you can be, and ultimately having freedom is good self-reflection and understanding what is it that drives me and what is it that I should be doing to make me feel fulfilled and happy. And for a lot of us, it is a motorcycle that's going to take the last piece of the puzzle into play for you. So
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned, your dad and being picked up from school and
mm.
and just that feeling when you were younger. Is that your first sort of memory of motorbikes?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I used to be able to hear my dad's motorcycle coming. It had a very distinct sound. Um, I couldn't tell you what kind of bike it was off the top of my head. I can't remember. I should have asked him, but he would ride the likes of Ninjas and ZX10s and stuff like that. So it was a really loud, big sports bike. And every time I
Nice.
heard it, all the kids in my class would go, "Oh, is that your dad, Nikki?" And I'd be like, "It is. It is. It's my dad." We'd all go running
That's
to the
my
gate.
dad.
That's my dad, and he's come to pick me up. And he was an interstate truck driver, so he would never tell me that he was coming. It would always be, "Oh my God, Dad's home, and he's on the bike." And it
Oh,
was just
that's so
such a
lovely.
beautiful memory to have.
Yeah. Oh, that's really, really nice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned as well, when we first started chatting, that you sort of grew up riding dirt bikes and
Yeah.
now you've got your beautiful big Harley.
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that, moving from the dirt bikes to the Harley, and the sort of bikes that you've ridden.
Yeah, it was a big change actually. I wasn't expecting it to be so different. I grew up riding a little DT Yamaha 100. It was like unbreakable. I flipped it many a time, and you'd bend the handlebars back, and it would just keep going. It was such a unit of a little bike. But when I started riding road bikes again, 15, almost 20 years had gone past since I'd ridden a motorcycle. So it was a really big gap for me. And I started out on a little Suzuki Intruder, which, was ultimately deemed to be a really good starter bike for me.
Yeah, that was my first road bike. Yes.
Yes, they're so
They're so
great.
good.
They're so great.
Yeah.
They're so light, and they're nimble, and they're really easy to maneuver. So I started out on
And they
that.
look awesome.
Yeah, they look tough. I definitely felt, big and bad on that little Intruder, and I just loved her. She was just the best bike. So I started out riding her, and then, within a couple of months, really, I was ready to move up, and I was wanting a little bit more power than the Suzuki could give me, especially when you're riding with a pack of boys and you can't keep up with them on the overtaking lane. Like
Yeah.
the Suzuki, they're struggling to do 110. So you're like, oh, I
Yes.
can't keep up. My next bike after that was a Street 500, a Harley Davidson Street 500.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah, and that was such a great bike. I had ape handles on it, so it was like a little bit easier for me to ride instead of leaning down because I'm quite tall as well. So I rode that for a couple of years, and then my bike that I have now, I've had for 2 years, and it is a 2012 Street Bob with a Stage 4 kit in it. So it's an
Wow.
old school Street Bob, but it's worked up, and she's a real grunty bike to ride, and I just love her.
Nice. And that is a big bike
It is a big
to
bike.
ride.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's another motorcycle club around here, the Fraser Coast Diggers. Oh, actually, I think they're actually state or potentially even nationwide, the Diggers. But the Fraser
Okay.
Coast chapter here, one of the guys there said to me, "Hey, I've got this Street Bob, and I really want you to come and have a ride on it." So I'll go have a look at it. Not expecting to ride a big bike. That wasn't really on my radar. I was thinking that I would get something like a little 1200. And anyway, I rode this bike and I just fell in love with it. It's the perfect bike for cruising. It has big panniers that I can clip on and off so I can go for big, long rides. But
Mhm.
if I need to take off pretty quickly or I need to power my way through an overtaking lane, I absolutely can. Not that I speed, I
Yeah.
would never encourage that.
But it's good to have power. You've got to get out of trouble when
Exactly.
you've got to overtake that truck or the car. You've
Yep,
got to be able to do that in a way that it's safe. Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome. Good
Mm,
on you, Nikki.
thank you.
That's cool. Um, if you could have any bike,
Mm.
what would you have and why?
Well, my husband already has my dream bike, and it's his dream bike too. So he has a 2008 Night Train. They don't make them
Mm,
anymore. They're a beautiful soft tail. I would love one myself, but I'm too stubborn to copy him. So my next one would be a Lowrider S. I think I'm going to go
okay.
with a Lowrider. Mm.
And why would you choose that one?
I like the look of the lowriders. I like the handling of them. They corner well. They cruise along the highway really nicely. They're a very slick looking bike, but they don't look
Mhm.
big and bulky like your Road Kings and your Street Glides and stuff
Mm,
like that. So I think they're just
okay.
a really good bike for a lady.
Okay, makes sense. Very
Mm.
good. So I know you're up the, Queensland, beautiful coast of Queensland, north of Brisbane,
Yes.
north of the Sunshine Coast, or in the Sunshine Coast.
I'm in the Fraser Coast. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. So what's the main type of riding that you're doing up there?
Well, if we're riding around town, we're pretty much just cruising along the esplanade and taking in the water views. We do a
Mm,
lot of highway running as well. And if you've got to get anywhere from the Fraser Coast, you're going on the highway to Brisbane, or you're going on the highway up to Bundaberg or Rockhampton, for example. And
mhm.
that's a lot of the riding that I will do is either up to Rockhampton where I've got some friends, or down to Brisbane where I've also got some friends that ride.
So a lot of highway type cruisy stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Occasionally, I like to scoot down through Mullaney and take on some good corners, which my bike is
Hmm.
really nice to corner as well. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't get to do as much as I'd like. It's a lot of highway running.
There
Mm,
you go. It is a beautiful part of the country up there. I
mm,
spent New Year's up at 1770, so
mm,
I bypassed where you are,
mm.
and
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
I'd love to ride up there. I really would. Even like a trip from where I am in the Snowy Mountains up to Townsville, taking a few weeks would be an absolute dream for me at the right
Mm,
time of year.
that would be a
I'm
beautiful
not good
ride.
in the heat,
No.
but it's such beautiful country up there, and the people are lovely, and
Mm,
it's pretty laid back. It's just a beautiful spot to be. So you're very lucky to be living where you are.
I am. I am.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Thinking about the rides that you've done,
Hmm.
what's the proudest, funniest, happiest, or scariest moment you've had as a rider? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh gosh, I have so many stories. Probably the scariest one was actually when I was still on my learners, and my poor husband was riding along behind me. So this must have been scarier for him, I think, than myself. But this is something I always tell people to look out for now because I've learned the hard way. I was cruising along just a normal residential street, and up ahead to my right, there was a street off to the right, and a backpacker pulled out of that street and straight into my lane. They were obviously
Mm,
used to driving on the right-hand side of the road,
mm,
and they just pulled straight out in front of me. And I had very little time to react before I was going to be head on with them. So luckily I'd had some really good defensive riding courses under my belt before that with Mark at Gympie, and he's a Q ride instructor there. And I was able
mhm.
to corner that bike, like just basically leant it over and moved away from that, and got did land up a gutter, but I
Mm.
stayed upright and
Oh, good
got
on
away
you.
from the backpacker. But yeah, that was
Mm,
definitely the scariest one. I think it was a moment where, we know we've got to look for cars, right? But what we don't think
mm,
about is cars coming straight into our lane, and what we're going to do to
mm.
react, and how our positioning in the lane is going to potentially impact our ability to maneuver. So I've always been
Mm.
really careful after that. That was definitely a big scary moment for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. I bet it was scary for them too.
Oh, I think so. I think we were all a
Yeah.
little bit shocked.
Gosh. Yeah.
It was definitely one of those moments where, if you were to freeze, you would come unstuck. So it
Mm.
was a big, scary wake up call that I need to always be watching what is happening around me, and not just where I kind of think something might go wrong. It's watching everything that could potentially go wrong around me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
My
What
funniest
about your proudest oh,
Oh, I
sorry,
was gonna say
funniest?
my
Yep, go for
funniest
that.
moment's hilarious because I looked like such an egg when I did this. But I bought this big bike, right? And I was like, this bike's really powerful and it sounds really tough. And I got a little bit big for my boots when I first bought that street bob I'm riding now. And I was riding along the Esplanade, and I downshifted gears, and there was a group of guys at the pub that all started cheering at me. Give it a bit. So I did, and I basically ended up doing a wheelie, and then
Oh, nice.
nearly dropped the bike, like
Oh,
big
no.
zigzag through traffic. Cars had to stop for me, and then I had to basically get my bike sorted, and toddle off with my ego back in my boots where it belonged.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Oh, that's
don't
funny.
try to impress people is the motto there. That was really, really silly.
Yeah, look, I think you'll just impress somebody just by riding normally along on that bike.
Definitely.
Yeah. Proudest moment?
Oh, definitely. My proudest moment was actually when I had my daughter on the back of the bike with me not that long ago. Finally getting to a point where I not only felt confident in my own riding ability and myself, but I felt confident enough to have my daughter be a pillion. She's 13
Mm,
years old. So having my 13-year-old sitting with me, and both us girls riding along the highway, and having that beautiful moment together was so proud for me.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, training up the next generation to ride bikes. I like it.
Yes, yes.
Very nice. Um, where's the furthest that you've ridden? You were talking about,
Mm.
doing your in-town rides and being able to pop on your bags and go a bit further.
Mm.
What's the furthest that you have gone?
The furthest from me is in either direction, the Gold Coast or Rockhampton, which is about a 4 or 5 hour ride either way. I'm really excited though. I'm going to actually ride down to Sydney in the next couple of months, so that will be a big ride for me, and I'm going to do the
Yeah.
eastern um, seaboard ride. Yeah.
Nice. You'll find that very different to Queensland, but
Mm.
it's still, it's some amazing sights that you'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
on that ride. Well, best of luck on that ride. I hope you get really good weather and
Thank you.
there's it's very uneventful for you.
Yes, fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
No, that'll be good. Thinking about all the rides that you could do all over the world, what would be your dream ride?
Mm. Oh, well, I would really like to go overseas and potentially do some riding over there. There is a ride in Nepal that happens every year. I think it's in September of every year, but basically you go over there and you're with a group of people that have tour guides and whatnot, and you get put onto um, a little motorcycle, and you basically ride through Nepal until you get to some temples up in the mountains. So that for me would be
Nice.
fantastic. That's my dream ride.
Sounds really good. Yeah,
Mm,
I'm sure you will make that happen.
I will. Yes. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. So, in everything that you've been through, all the different things that you've tried to fill your cup, and you've now got motorcycle riding ticking that box,
Mm.
what has riding taught you about yourself?
It's taught me that living in the moment really is the key to happiness. It's definitely taught me that you need to be really courageous to be able to ride a motorcycle. And I think that we don't talk about that enough, about how brave we are when we're getting on a motorcycle, and we're really putting, I guess, ourselves in a position of risk as well that, most people won't do. I think that that's really courageous, and definitely for me, I think that that's been a little bit of the secret in life. Is, the secret to happiness is freedom, but the secret to freedom is courage, and having the courage to
Mm.
go and get on a motorcycle and go and ride, and put yourself through corners and push the boundaries of what you thought you could do, last week or the week before. That's, what it
Mm.
really entails, I think, for a lot of us, and definitely for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. And what tips or advice would you give someone that's new to riding
Mm.
or someone who's wanting to ride?
Yeah, well, look, I think that the usual tips apply. Of, make sure that you ride your own ride, and don't push yourself to other people's riding ability. If you're particularly riding in a group, it's really important that you're riding to what you're confident in and what your ability is. That's the best way to keep yourself safe. Otherwise, the other piece of advice I'd give you is always look up and look around the corners.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Nikki.
Mm.
I've just got a couple of questions, I suppose, about your beautiful German Shepherd puppy as well. A little bit
Yes.
off topic with motorcycle riding,
Yeah.
but tell us how you got to thinking that, training a German Shepherd puppy to be a protection dog is something that you
Mm,
wanted to do.
mm. Well, my parents had German Shepherds when we were growing up, and one of the biggest influences, I think, on choosing an animal for me was the animals that we had when I was a child, because they were so well trained. And again, that comes back to my dad. He was a breeder, and he was a trainer, and he was a very, very smart man in terms of helping that animal become the best version of itself. So when we decided to expand our family and get two German Shepherd puppies, I decided that I would get one that was working bred, and that I would,
Mm.
rise to the challenge of training a working breed German Shepherd into being a protection dog, which most people will never tackle. And understandably, it's a big job, but
Mm.
it's amazing when you start seeing the transformation. And Asher, my German Shepherd pup, is 7 months old today, and
Yeah.
he's incredible. He's very well trained already. He's already starting his bite training, and he's already started his agility and obedience training, and he's coming along so well. And ultimately, what it means is that I have a dog that's really confident and really, really switched on to my cues.
Mm.
And it's absolutely not about making him capable of biting people. It's not about that. It's about making that dog the healthiest version of himself, and really giving him a job to do. And you can see how happy it makes him. So it's really nice.
Mm. Oh, that's fantastic. Love to hear how he goes.
Yeah.
And are you thinking about riding with him?
Yeah, I am actually. I'm looking at, he's a big boy. So, for me, it's about finding the right setup that can go on my bike to keep him safe. There's a guy
Mm.
that rides around the Fraser Coast with his border collie on the back of his bike in a crate. And I'm thinking
Mm.
about knocking off a very similar type of idea. And if I can pull it off, you'll absolutely get a photo of me riding with my German Shepherd
Yeah.
pup in the back.
Oh, awesome. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, her partner has a service dog,
Hmm.
um, and they're actually looking at contraptions that you can add to your bike to carry, because he's got a big Labrador,
Yeah.
and he's bigger than a German
Oh, for
Shepherd. Like,
sure.
yeah. So I've seen some amazing like crate things that you can put on the back,
Yeah.
and I was always worried about, oh gosh, what if they get hurt?
Mm,
But this crate that I've actually seen is a soft crate, like
yes.
it's rigid, but it's soft,
Hmm.
so that, if you're leaning into a corner or he moves or anything, he's not actually hitting a bit of plastic or a bit of metal.
Yeah, that's
He's got
right.
that softness with him.
And
Yeah.
you can
So
often
there's some
get,
amazing stuff.
yeah, and you get harnesses that, basically center
Mhm.
anchor them down as well, so that they can't jump around too much. And, I
Mm.
guess again, it comes down to making the dog feel really comfortable on the back of the bike. And that's definitely something that we're working on now. We've had our dogs around the bike since they were 6 and 8 weeks old. So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
They're used to it. Yeah, I've got 3 Jack Russells, and I
Yes.
reckon out of the 3, There's one that I could definitely ride with, but there's no way she'd get on the back.
Oh, you
She's
have
on
to
the
strap her
front.
to
Like,
your
oh,
chest.
seriously? Yeah. But look, the way that I ride as well, I don't think it would be safe for her. But
Mm.
I tell you what, to have that feeling and have that animal with you when you're riding is going to be amazing.
Yeah, for
Yeah, so
sure.
that's really exciting. You'll have to keep us up to date with
I
that.
will. I
That's
will.
really good. Yeah. Well, Nikki, we've actually come to the end of our conversation today. I've
Okay.
really loved chatting with you.
Yes, same.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
Look, like I said at the start, life is very short, and we say that a lot, but really, truly living that is how you actually end up in a position where you're really happy and free. So, if you want the bigger bike, go get it. If you want to do the different rides and you want to go do the interstate ride, go do it. Go do it. You can make
Oh,
more
yeah,
money. You can make all those other different things happen, but you've got to make the freedom and the happiness your priority. And have fun. Have
absolutely.
fun with it.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you so much, Nikki. Really enjoyed talking to you and looking forward to updates on your adventures.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a real privilege. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Wind Therapy is proudly sponsored by womenmoto.com, sharing knowledge, culture, and feminine prowess whilst embracing the motorcycle lifestyle with a distinct quintessence of Aussie and Kiwi frankness. Australasia's original e-mag for moto women, experiencing their extraordinary. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. If you like what you heard, please tell your friends. If you or someone you know might like to be part of Wind Therapy episodes, email windtherapypodcast@yahoo.com. Special thanks to Megan Peacock for the awesome Wind Therapy illustration and to Zoe Francis for her technical support, direction and production of this podcast.